hard. And I mean, I speak for a living. That's kind of what I do. But oftentimes we go into recruiting situations where I have a big group of people, have an hour, and that presentation material is a little bit easier to kind of keep in it. But when you're talking about something you're passionate about and you got a couple points that you really want to get in, you're trying to teach people something, man, 45 minutes goes super fast. Goes super fast.
It's tough.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just I've got a few notes I need to make. All right. Jim Collison, we're live back here, Heartland Developer Conference 2017. I'm here with Robert Boedigheimer. And Robert, welcome back. Good to have you. I think we had you a couple years ago, but welcome back.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, let's get to know you a little bit. If you can, who you are, where you live, what you do, where you work, that kind of stuff. It'd be great.
So I'm from Minnesota, and I've been speaking for about the last 13 years. I was at the very first HDC in 2004. I presented every year, so it's cool to be back.
They should have rings or something.
That'd be cool. And I work for Schwann's Shared Services, primarily on their e-commerce website. So,
and Schwann's, that's the food service.
Yeah, home delivery frozen food.
Yeah.
And then we own consumer brands. We have Tony's, Red Baron, Freshetta. And we also do a lot of school food service as well.
Schwann Man, they would always say. The Schwann Man's coming. Hey, they were doing distributed food delivery long
time ago,
right?
Yeah. Well, we had mobile devices a long time ago too. People are just starting to talk about mobile apps, and we've been running them on our trucks for years. It's one of the first things I did there. So.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your session here.
Okay.
What have they talked about?
So the focus was just on, you have problems with websites and what do you do about it? And so, like I said, full-time, I'm an e-commerce developer. And so you run into a lot of things that go wrong with various devices.
And it's money.
Yeah.
So it's got to be right?
Or techniques that don't work. So I was going through Fiddler, which is a tool got bought by Telerik in 2012.
Okay.
It was actually created by Eric Lawrence quite a while ago. I mean, which I think is a good story. So he didn't know HTTP, he didn't know .NET, and he didn't know C#. And he decided, I'm going to write a tool and give it out to people for free on my weekends and free time. Why not?
Right.
And we're all glad he did. So,
so many great stories like that.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I use that a lot. So probably half the talk is how to use Fiddler to troubleshoot performance problems, other things that don't work. And then there's certain things you can't do in Fiddler, because Fiddler is mostly just a tool that sits between your browser and your server. So it's watching all the traffic that goes back and forth. So you get a lot of things you can solve with that, but then there's also things that I need to actually be in the browser in their developer tools.
So Fiddler would be more, you don't want to say back end, but more in that middle between what the server's doing. So you would definitely use it as a tool to kind of see the transactions that are taking place between the browser and the server, where things could be going wrong. Yeah,
because I think the average web page just crossed 3 meg. And so you think about a web page, you think there's one request. You know, people that haven't looked at traces before.
Yeah.
But the average web page is about 100 requests to get all the images and JavaScript, and it's about 3 meg big. Did you ever play Doom?
I did play Doom in the day.
The average web page is bigger than Doom's setup was, which should kind of freak you out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the Fiddler stuff is nice for seeing what's being transmitted, all of those requests, are those all working?
Yeah.
And then when it's something specific to the browser, like the styles, something just doesn't look right in the browser, then I talk about Chrome developer tools and how do you troubleshoot that kind of stuff.
What's the licensing model for Fiddler? Can you buy that separately? Telerik's in that space, right? Of these helping kind of tools.
Fiddler's actually free, which is good.
Okay.
And so that was one of the big things. He'd always provided it. He actually worked at Microsoft originally, and his group just didn't have a tool to do troubleshooting. That's why he wrote it. So he had always given it out for free.
And he might have been ahead of the Microsoft open source movement, right?
He was, yeah. I mean, for him, it was a side project, but it was probably one of their bigger products that a Microsoft person made available to people.
So free and available on the web. People can just go out and download it and use it. What's the setup like? So for the average person who's just thinking, oh, hey, there's a tool. I just found a tool. What's the setup to get that?
It's really straightforward. I mean, you go out to the website, standard exe install. They do have a couple different versions. So they have the traditional Fiddler tool that most people are familiar with. I also demoed, if you have somebody that's not very technically literate and you want to help them, they have a tool called Fiddler Cap, which is just a really small program that they can literally say, I I have a problem, I want to start capturing, opens the browser for them, tells them to clear their cache, clear their cookies, so you can really, people who aren't developers can still help and do that kind of tracing and stuff for you. So that's another way that you can set it up with that product as well. But it's pretty easy to install.
And helpful to clear those things because it's going to re-invoke some new things that you wouldn't have seen, right?
Yes.
In that case.
And using that kind of a tool, it's a lot easier for someone who's not a programmer to be able to know, because we always tell them, clear your cache, clear your cookies.
Reboot.
Yeah, and then it can also decrypt HTTPS traffic.
Okay.
So we can tell it to do that. And it's just a nice small interface that makes it easy for them to do.
Yeah.
So.
And so in using that, then what are the common problems? What do you get the most value out of, the problems that you see the most often through Fiddler?
So from a Fiddler standpoint, probably performance. So just being able to troubleshoot either it doesn't work at all. Most websites today integrate with a lot of partners. So on a given day, you've got a lot of things that have to work for your page to function right. So it's easy to pull it up in Fiddler and just see, hey, it's this particular request to this third party that's not working. That's really easy to identify with Fiddler, which is helpful.
And so beyond that, or there's some other little tips and tricks in there that you find in Fiddler, that just little things that's, it's helpful to find this or helpful to find that?
Yeah, so what I like, you can also modify your traffic. That's really what makes Fiddler different than the other tools. So you can actually, like for instance, I create a web page and I say, what would happen if the style sheet was really slow? You know, if the style sheet was downloading slow, what would the user's experience be like? You can actually take that file in Fiddler, drag it over and say, purposely make that file take 20 seconds. And then you can see what happens to my page. Is it all blank? Do I see portions of it? And by seeing that kind of stuff, you can then go make adjustments to things.
Yeah. Do you find most users can set this up on their own? Is it helpful to get some help from somebody else? Are there a user community that?
No, it's really straightforward. And they do have a good community, but I mean, the install stuff's pretty straightforward.
So pretty easy tool.
Yep.
So you mentioned Fiddler. You also mentioned some Chrome tools that you're using.
Yep.
Oh, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so the nice thing is the dev tools are built directly into the browsers. So that's the other thing. If somebody comes and says, hey, I'm having a problem, I really don't necessarily want to install Fiddler on their machine. Because if you're the last person who installed X on somebody's machine,
then
you got 2 years of pain coming.
you're blamed for everything.
Yeah, so the nice thing is in the dev tools, they're built right in, so you can do basic troubleshooting. They do have a network tab that does kind of a Fiddler Lite, where it'll capture traffic.
Okay.
So I can actually capture the traffic, save it, and then import it into Fiddler later to do all the analysis I have to do. So it's a nice part. I don't have to install anything. I still get a lot of the benefits out of it.
Available right inside Chrome.
Yes.
For free. No one would have to do it. Do you find, is Google, and I think I know the answer to this, but are they keeping up with it? Is it something that's constantly?
Yeah, and the nice thing is with the competition across browsers, all the dev tools have gotten that much better.
Yeah.
I mean, where they were 5 years ago, someone will add something that's really cool, and then you see it driving innovation with everyone else.
It's kind of nice to have those just built right there. Even as a developer, you can say, hey, can you do this for me? So, right?
Yep,
so
people that are remote. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Get that done. Do you find, here, this is bonus content. I'm sure nobody asked you this. In the world of IE and Edge, and you're probably seeing this more and more, I know with some of the, we have, I do a lot of podcasts for Gallup.
Yep.
We have people trying to watch and listen to our stuff on IE and Edge. It's always got problems, IE in particular. Are you seeing, do you see a lot of the same issues? In fact, we still have a pretty good size user in IE. Does that cause problems for you? And what do you do about that?
Well, so IE in general, I think the newer versions are a lot better. I like Edge.
Okay.
So I've used Edge quite a bit. We've had problems in the past with just older versions, only I think because Internet Explorer was always shipped with your operating system,
right?
And they didn't have it auto update,
right?
And they tend to like to tie their versions to OS versions, so you end up having versions you need to support so much longer than all the other ones because their default, and so is Edge now, are all defaulted to auto update, so they kind of cause that problem for themselves,
right?
But we deal with it with. We want to use certain techniques. You can use a tool called Modernizer. It's a JavaScript library.
Okay.
It can detect, instead of looking for a specific version of IE, we just say we want to use this feature. Modernizer will tell us that browser supports it or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, we just send them to a page that says, sorry, that doesn't work on this device. You'll have to get some other browser that supports that.
Okay. And Firefox certainly has gone these up and down popularity. It seems to be down now. I could be wrong, but what are you seeing out there?
I'm actually seeing kind of the flip to the opposite, where there's been a lull in the last few years for Firefox, I think. There weren't just a lot of new features, but specifically from a dev tools perspective, they've really been driving stuff in the last 6 months to a year to put in a lot of new features in.
So as a developer, I definitely still want to keep an eye on Firefox from what's going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely nice to have their tools are equivalent to the other developer tools. I would see about what you do, which is from an audience perspective, it seems to be losing some of its audience, but we still see enough of it to make the support worthwhile. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's still popular. I mean, it's still out there. It's not it's not going anywhere. Do you guys care about any of the other browsers, Opera, some of the smaller ones? Do those matter in the world anymore, or do you really just, Edge, Chrome, and Firefox, and you're good?
I guess the good news for me is because I care about the feature support, I don't really focus much on one browser versus another. And they've gotten pretty well standardized that the JavaScript and stuff is the same. So I get to program not really too worried about all of the fringe ones, but they all do a pretty good support for modern features. So it's not like it used to be where I had to worry about testing on 20 different versions of different browsers. I can focus on the core ones. And because we use Modernizer, it'll kind of shove the ones that don't work aside. So we don't need to worry about them. But if they happen to support the feature, that's great. We just don't spend a lot of time where we have to test them or do other things.
Fair enough. Gotten more standard across the board.
Yep.
In the world of e-commerce, you're in that world. Bitcoin is making a big splash right now, right? Price is up. Everybody's starting to think about it. Have you, or is the community that you hang out when it comes to e-commerce begun to kind of deal with the blockchain at all?
Not yet. I mean, we certainly hear about it a lot, but I haven't seen a lot of retailers that are embracing it yet. Yeah.
It's interesting. We've seen like Newegg go that direction. I think Dell will take Bitcoin as a form of payment. But we even at Gallup have had some conversations just internally. I think it's going to be one of those things, especially as we go more and more international. It breaks down some of the fees are just so much cheaper in that way. What's the best of when we think of e-commerce today and what's going on? What's the best of e-commerce and who's doing it? What are you seeing in the space? So like who's doing that really well and it's really working well from a user experience or
I guess
standpoint?
We're looking at Amazon a lot. I mean, as being the biggest competitor. Somebody that you watch just for how do they do general techniques, how do they drive users' expectations. So things that they do that it may trickle down into things that people are so used to and being common that they would expect from us.
Do you get on Amazon though at times and go, God, why are they doing it this way?
I certainly wouldn't say they're the best in all of the techniques that they use, but just the sheer volume of people that they have, it certainly sets expectations for other people about what they expect from other e-commerce sites.
There are moments, they ship a ton of stuff through there. And yet there are moments I'm like, well, why are you doing this? Or what was the thought that, and the UI in itself has about 4 million options. Their drop downs are intense, right?
They are.
So you got, you have a lot of options there. Still doesn't stop me from buying.
I was gonna say they're still doing something right, whatever it is.
I know, and it's the perfect example of a trained behavior that when I go to buy something, my first thought now is Amazon. I mean, it's just top of mind. You just think, I wonder if it's on Amazon. And so they've done their job in that.
Especially with Prime. I think Prime made a big difference for that.
Well, and I'm actually surprised more people aren't copying that model in some ways. Jeff Bezos has lost a lot of money on Prime. Shipping is a $4 billion industry for them or something like that each year. And it's not making him money, certainly, but he understood share of wallet, and he certainly has that in a lot of ways. So pretty amazing. Last question for you, Robert. If I've been saying this to a lot of the guests, if you were to give some recommendations for somebody just coming in now who is doing what you do in the work that you're doing, what kind of advice would you give them if they're just getting started? What were the things you learned? Like, man, I would really focus on these things if I was doing this right. Doing it new today. Fresh grad. Jody and I work with a lot of high school and college students and so I'm always like, they're always asking that advice. What kind of advice would you give a rookie?
So anybody new, I certainly focus on the web.
Okay.
I mean, out of all the development areas you can have, I just think there's so many opportunities in that. It's gotten so much better. It'd be nice to come in now and not have suffered along the way.
Yeah.
There's some definite
Browsers,
advantages to
yeah.
that. But obviously focusing on HTML, we started using CSS preprocessors. Like we use SAS, which has made a big difference to our CSS development. Obviously, JavaScript has become so much bigger in the last years than it ever was before.
It has really taken off, and yet there's two camps. There's kind of some code side, and then there's some JavaScript side, right? Does that exist? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I've only recently kind of heard that coming on, but we tell our high school students we actually onboard them with JavaScript. That's the first thing we teach them. We're finding that's pretty easy for them to embrace and get into, and then we'll introduce them to more of the traditional C#.
Yep.
Maybe a little bit later in the cycle.
And I think the main thing for new people is just expect lifelong learning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not something you finish school and you're done.
Do you find you're a speaker here, so you come for free, but would you find, are these kind of conferences beneficial to you to be able to learn and grow?
Yep.
Do you go to all the sessions, even though you're speaking, you go to all the sessions? So yeah, I think
because stuff changes so often. I mean, even the web is so huge that there's areas that you can't even cover, but then there's just interesting side areas that are doing things that I haven't seen at all before, and it's just a great opportunity to pick it up while I'm here anyways.
Good.
So
yeah, good. Robert, thank you. Good advice. I'll remind everyone, we got one more session left coming up here in just a few minutes. It's right below, it's on the video window right below there if you want to join us here shortly. But Robert, thanks for being with us.
Thank
Appreciate
you very much.
You bet. Hang tight for me one sec.